Now, so the next stage I put here is final sample testing, or DVT. So at this point, right, let's pause. Let's think what we did so far. So you have your system architecture, schematics, layout, everything is done. You have your prototype. Subsystem teams have taken the EVT after the bring up. Okay, they have the systems with them. They have done the testing on that. They have collected the data, and the system architects have system architects have looked at the data. Okay, now what happens is, let's say all the subsystem teams, they sit together, right, and they say that, okay, now we have all this data, and there are 100 different things I want to fix on this. Okay, I have 100 different things. There are a lot of issues that we see. I want to fix on this hardware. So what do? Let's say you are the system architect. You have called for a meeting. You are the system architect. You have called for subsystem leads from different blocks, right? They all come. They all have reported, done the testing, and they have reported some 10-15 issues. So you look at all the issues list, and you say that there are some 100 issues, and everybody is saying it's because of the hardware. It's some hardware issue. So what do you do now? So think, what will you do if you're a system architect at this stage? Okay, I'll see some answers. Restart from scratch, analyze issue and fix it. If it could remove by adding a block, add another block. Simulation study with actual components. Yes, correct. Okay, so what you do, right, at this stage, you make changes you go step by step, like somebody said. You again go back, you work backwards and say, okay, let me look at the system architecture. Let me look at the schematics. Let me look at the placement, layout, prototype development. Is it the factory issue, or is it our issue? I don't know. Or is it a component issue? Sometimes component tolerances will be different. Okay, I expect the resistor to be, some 100 ohms, but actually it is not 100 ohms. Probably it is 100, 102 or 103 or 105, 5%, right? 105 ohms. So maybe that is causing the issue. We don't know, right? Something is making it worse. So we have to look at in detail, and then we refine the hardware and build one more version of the hardware. Okay, so this has to be a refined hardware. So why I'm calling it as a refined hardware is, so once you do this hardware, right? Again, this is not for customers, and you take this hardware, you run the predetermined tests. So all the teams, subsystem teams, have predetermined test cases. Now you run it rigorously, those test cases, and see whether it is performing as you expect, and see whether the issues on EVT are fixed. Okay, now you focus here on performance and to see whether the issues on EVT are fixed. So someone here, Anshuman was asking me whether functionality also corresponds to performance, right? He's asking whether functionality and performance, are they both same? So the answer is no. When we say functionality, it means that whether something is working or not. So like how I gave you the example of power consumption. So it is taking 10 watts. That means the system is doing its, it should have taken 10 watts, but it was taking 12 watts. That means it is doing the job. Okay, the hardware is working. So that's why it is taking 12 watts of power. But if you look at the performance perspective, I wanted it to take only 10 watts. I did not want it to take, from the system architecture point of view, I did not want it to exceed 10 watts. So that means the performance is not good, but the functionality is there. It is doing its job, but it's not doing a good job. So we have to make it do a good job. So that's what is performance. So again, you test and gather data. Again, like similar to EVT, you build a limited units here, because this is still not production ready. You have some more steps to do before you go to production ready. So you build a small quantity and you do the testing. And one thing to note, once you test and gather data, let's say if the issues in the EVT are fixed, and if the performance is good, when I say good, let's say it is meeting most of the specifications, you can in fact give it to some customers. Some customers, what they do is they say something called as early sample. They may say that, hey, I want to see your hardware. Can you give it to me? I want to see whether it works or not. So in that scenario, if it is meeting these two criteria, let's say the issues are fixed and the performance is okay, right? You can actually give it to customers, some 1 or 2 units, so that they can also see that, okay, you've done some real hardware. Okay. Again, like before DVT, there could be revisions like DVT1 and DVT2. And like how I told you, ideally we don't want to get into these revisions, because anytime you make a revision, we are spending time and money. Okay, there are few questions that I'll take. So somebody's asking, what is predetermined test case? So predetermined test case means, I know that I have designed a system. So let's say if I'm an wireless engineer, so I want to test what is the power that is getting radiated from the antenna or from the radio, right? So that means I have a test case for that. I'm going to run some algorithm, and I'm going to see, okay, what is the transmit power in 5G? Let's say 5G, I want to see what is the transmit power. So like this, I'll create my own test cases to test my hardware. Okay, all this you decide before. It's not once you get the hardware, you decide that. You would have thought about it during system architecture, during modeling and simulation, right? You would have determined what should be the test case. Okay, next question is, will we repeat all the test cases in DVT as we did in EVT? Well, if you are not made changes, major changes, you don't have to repeat. But eventually you may test it, because when you do some hardware change, it may impact those test cases also. So to be safe, it's better to test, repeat the tests that you've done on EVT. So that's why this is a time consuming process. You may have to run all the tests on the DVT if you have made some major changes in your hardware. Please subscribe to our channel by clicking on the subscribe button below to get regular updates of video releases.